at IFCCI, and it is my pleasure to be your host for today's event. Before we begin, let me run you through a few ground rules. We would like the session to be as interactive as possible, and therefore it would be great if you could place your questions at the chat box and address them to the organizers only. If you have any questions that are directed to any specific speaker, please mention them in your comments as well, and we will try our best to address them at the end of each session. And now, without any further ado, please join me in welcoming our Regional Director for the Western Region of IFCCI, Shweta Pahuja, to give the welcome address.
Thank you, Tracy. A very good afternoon to everyone. I'm pleased to welcome you all to the 4th edition of the LGBTQIA webinar organized in collaboration with Godrej Industries. It is really with great pleasure and pride that we have all come together today to continue fostering inclusivity and diversity in the workspace and beyond. With this 4th edition, we at the Indo-French Chamber of Commerce wish to celebrate diversity and promote equality, which are really the essential drivers of our society today. And this webinar today will serve as a platform for an open dialogue, and the discussions and shared experiences will help us understand and, of course, to promote inclusivity, diversity, but also to enable us to put in place actionable changes within our organizations and communities. I would like to sincerely thank all our distinguished speakers, panelists, and participants for their valuable contributions to building a more inclusive and equitable society for all. Thank you for joining us all, and I wish you all a great and enriching webinar today. Now, to start off with, I would like to invite Mr. Sami Bouakazi, Deputy Consul at the French Consulate of Mumbai, here in Mumbai, and to please start off the session. Over to you, Sami.
Thank you, Shweta. I hope you are all able to
hear you, Sami.
You cannot hear me?
Sami, you're on mute, I think.
No?
We can hear you.
I'm able to hear you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we can hear him.
We don't hear you, Sami.
But everybody else is is hearing me. Okay.
Can you check if your microphone is connected?
Shweta, I guess there's an issue at your end.
No.
Oh.
Shweta, we
Whether
can
there's
hear
an
him.
issue at your end.
We can hear Sami, yeah.
Yeah, everybody's except you, Shweta. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. It's all good. Sorry, Sami. My bad.
Okay. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. So I really hope everybody is able to hear me. I'm very happy to participate in the webinar. It's the 3rd time that I am participating, and I really like to thank Shweta and the whole IFCCI team for putting this event together and making it now a successful yearly occurrence. So hopefully we are going to celebrate more of this webinar in the coming years. And actually, the success of this webinar is in itself the proof of its relevance. I wanted to start my very short introduction by quoting a very honorable gentleman, Mr. Robert Badinter, a former French Minister for Justice, who passed away exactly a week ago. And he's the one who abolished the death penalty in France in 1981, but also the one who decriminalized homosexuality in 1982. And he said, we have not reached yet the end of this long fight, but this is not the reason to stop now. classical Western philosophers acknowledged centuries and centuries ago the importance of social responsibility for human thriving. I read somewhere that Cicero in ancient Rome wrote that which isn't good for the hive isn't good for the bee. Well, I'm not a philosopher, so I tend to think exactly the opposite. That is, what is not good for the bee is definitely not good for the hive. But actually, maybe this is not mutually exclusive. We all have read about, those gay athletes who performed phenomenally once they came out to their team members, lifting a toxic weight off of their shoulders, and how obviously this benefited to the team. But they all say the same thing. Coming out was made possible thanks to the peers accepting them for who they are. And last year in France, 1 in 4 LGBT plus persons has been victim at least once of LGBT phobia assault at their professional environment. How is tackling this issue not part of the social responsibility of the employer? How is harmful surrounding good for the company? I mean, how this blatant lack of social acceptance, well, acceptable? I am from a country where the issue is the young age of our prime minister, not his sexuality. I work for a government where an openly gay civil servant can be, well, deputy consul general in a prominent consulate. But like Robert Badinter said, we have not reached the end of the struggle. So altogether, we should make our hive more inclusive for all the bees. And that's how I'm going to conclude this short introduction. Once more, thank you very much to IFCCI for organizing this webinar, and I wish you to enjoy the wonderful panels ahead of us this afternoon. Thank you very much. Back to you, Tracy.
Thank you very much, Sami. Thank you for playing such a significant role in promoting inclusivity in our society. Now, moving forward to the first panel, the discussion is titled LGBTQIA Transformation Towards Social Acceptance. I'm pleased to welcome our moderator, Kanish Chaudhary, co-founder of Samvesh Chamber of Commerce, along with our panelists for today, Christina Evers from Godrej Capital, Zainab Patel from Pernod Ricard, and Aditya Advani from Roha Landscape Architects. Over to you, Kanish.
Thank you, Tracy. Is everyone able to hear me well?
Yes.
Yeah, you're audible.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Sami, Shweta, Tracy, and the teams at the Indo-French Chamber of Commerce and Industry and Godrej Industries to actually host this panel for the 4th time and make it an annual event. It is but pertinent that allies, organizations come forward and host discussions where different viewpoints are heard. People are able to look forward to role models, understand where the entire diversity inclusion discussion is going in social spaces as well as corporate spaces. And I'm really glad and honored to be moderating this panel. Our panel is titled LGBTQI Transformation Towards Social Acceptance. And let me take a moment to introduce our esteemed panelists in alphabetical order. Aditya Advani uses the pronouns or prefers the pronouns he, him. Aditya is an out and proud gay father of twins, Shiv and Amrita, who are now 12 years old. Aditya and his partner Michael Aramta have been a couple for around 34 years, which is quite an accomplishment in itself. When in 2012, when they had kids, they decided to bring them up in India. And by profession, Aditya is a landscape architect and Michael is a photographer. Welcome to the panel, Aditya.
Thank you.
Christina, our second panelist, uses or prefers the pronouns she and her, and is a known personality in Tinseltown. Christina is a national volunteer, serving the community with her skills and time. Christina is very fashionable, very trendy, and has a very innovative brain. Currently, she works with Godrej Capital as an assistant manager with the HR and admin department, and has over 20 years of experience in the corporate sector. Very interestingly, she was very recently facilitated with Rex Global Karamveer Award for her work done in the non-profit space. This award is a global civilian honor. It is given by the International Confederation of NGOs in partnership with the United Nations for people across the globe for the contribution to the non-profit sector and for the relentless carry. And it's a tribute to APJ Abdul Kalam. So congratulations, Christina, on receiving that award. And welcome to the panel. Thanks. Our last panelist, or the third panelist, is Zainab Patel. Zainab prefers and uses the pronouns she and her. Zainab is born in Mumbai. Zainab, born in Mumbai, is a transgender person who is also one of the petitioners in the NALSA and Union of India case on transgender rights and in the marriage equality case. Zainab currently works with Pernod Ricard India as their Chief of Inclusion Diversity. And before this, she has worked with KPMG as the Director of Diversity and Inclusion. Now, Zainab carries a myriad of experiences. An MBA in HR, Zainab has worked with the National Manager of with UNDP in India for health and human rights, and was also the Regional Policy Analyst on Human Rights in Asia with UNDP. Zainab works on her interest in the health and social development sector and has over 20 years of national and international experience related to that. She's also a social entrepreneur, and her small businesses now employ around 18 trans and non-binary folks through two different initiatives, the Trans Cafe and the Transformation Saloon. Both are based out of Mumbai. Zainab also serves as the Western India representative in the National Council of Transgender Persons. Zainab is an amazing leader and also a Kamal Nayan Bajaj Fellow, which is part of the Aspen Global Leadership Network. Welcome to the panel, Zainab. All right. Now, starting the panel, well, we did have a lot of questions, but we decided to keep it a bit free flowing. We start with the personal journey with respect to social acceptance. And Aditya, to start with you, you have been in India, you have been abroad where you met your partner, and you have been an out and proud gay person for the longest amount of time, right? How has you seen social acceptance evolve from before you came out, when you came out, and now?
Well, it's wonderful the way social acceptance has evolved. Of course, when I was growing up, I'm 60 years old, and when I was growing up 45 years ago, when I was 15, I had no clue that there would be an opportunity for gay people to live openly in India, and that there would be an actual acceptance of gay people such as there is now all across the world, that there would be gay marriage. So, you know, these things we lived in the dark, we lived in the years before the internet. This panel also may have encountered the same thing when we newsletters and phone contacts and contact lists to meet people. And those were better in some ways because it allowed really good one-on-one interaction and friendships to develop. But generally, I think social acceptance has increased despite the opposition of the world and society, of the heterosexual society. And it has to do with many things. I think it has to do with also our own strength as a community coming out and standing up for ourselves. It has to do with making allies across the world, and general awareness in society that homosexuality is natural. Decriminalization, the analysts or psychiatrists saying that it's not a criminal thing. All these things add up. So generally, I think things have improved. For sure, 100% they improved, 200%. There's no doubt about that at all. Whether we've reached a point of total social acceptance, of course we haven't. And we need to get there, and we can't stop the struggle. Is that your question? Is there anything else I should answer?
Yeah. In fact, I can very much relate. We used to have these diaries with our friends, numbers listed down, and we used to call. We have 2 rings, so that means that 2 rings, and you cut the call. That means it's a friend who's calling you.
Right,
So
exactly.
from that, now we have seen such a transition happening across all our different intersectionalities. Yeah.
Right.
Thank you for sharing, Adit. And Christina, coming over to you. Well, social acceptance starts with accepting ourselves first, right? So first we accept ourselves, as I understand, and then we go ahead and seek acceptance from others. How had that journey been for you?
So, thanks, Kanish. It's actually a very good question that you have brought forward. And hi, everyone, once again. Harish is there, Aditya, Sami. So, social acceptance, when you talk about accepting yourself, it really takes a lot of time, especially from the era that I come from, 80s. So, it really took me a lot of time, because even if I had to, get close to someone or get physical with someone, and if that person used to tell me that I'll go and tell everyone in the society, we used to be scared. Okay, what if someone in my family gets to know I'm gay? What if someone in my family gets to know, I am not, those days people used to say, not normal. Okay, what if this is what is going to be the reaction? They're going to beat me and everything. So it really took me time, years, almost like more than 20 years, I would say 22 years, for me to accept myself, in the society as who I am. So when I underwent it always happens, okay? When I underwent my surgery in 2010, and when I got back to, again, Bengal, Calcutta in 2011, things changed drastically, because that point of time I was not getting job because I was a trans woman. So that socially people were not accepting, even in 2011. It's like just in a couple of years where people have gone ahead and started accepting. But in 2011, I had to again, cut off my hair. I had to again again that trauma started, until I found and I said, no, it's for me to accept myself. And now I am not, let going to anyone else take decision of my life. So I'm not going to allow that to happen. So yes, if you accept yourself, because if your family accepts you, 50% struggle ends there. The moment your family says they accept you. Okay, however, if the family doesn't accept, and the society is not very much educated, they are not sensitized about the LGBTQIA plus community, and especially for a transgender person, for a trans woman especially, things are very difficult, and it's very vulnerable for us to live in the society. But of late, yes, society has started accepting, not completely out of 100%, I would say like 35% acceptance is there. So which is a positive sign. It's good. Hope I've answered you.
I'm glad. Yeah. We are in the journey together, and it's a long one. I that's what that's what we have been subjected to, but that's okay. Zainab, I mean, both of us hail from small towns and moved to this metropolitan Mumbai, having worked across. How you seen, like, between different cities and towns, like small towns, metros in India and internationally. Do you see a change in terms of social acceptance when you move borders, when you move cities, when you move countries?
Thank you, Kanishk. Unlike others, I'm not going to be revealing my age and I'm not going to say which part of the 80s I come from. But definitely, I'm not going to be mentioning that. But let me start off with a very small caveat in terms of how I look at things. Um, so, during my own transition and life journey, I had to move across different cities, um, Mumbai to UP, UP to Delhi, Delhi to Bangkok, partly Philippines, then come back to India, restarted my life back in Delhi and now in Mumbai, and hopefully move out from Mumbai to another city in a couple of months. But very interestingly, why do people move away from their natal cities? Either for better job opportunities or for safer conditions. I think with the LGBTIQ community, and I'm using a really very broad brushstroke to say that unfortunately, our natal biological families are not some of our biggest allies. There are very few people, including Harish, who was and your parent and others, who have stood by their children. But about 90% of our families have either disowned or have nothing to do with us or largely tolerate our existence. So, when we talk about acceptance, the parameters for acceptance are very different for different kinds of people. Um, let me tell you, when I was in Delhi and I was working in KPMG, and I had to move into an apartment complex with two other trans people. One of them happened to be a trans masculine person and very cisgendered looking, very passable as a man, and both of us went to speak to the agent. After looking at the third trans person, the person said no. And I had to actually tell him that I work with this company KPMG. And when the landlord heard that I was from KPMG, he asked me, "Give me your card." Fortunately, his son-in-law happened to be working in KPMG, and when he inquired about us, he said, "Please go and give her this room immediately. She's a very senior member of our team and we are proud to have her on board." But this was just a chance of luck. When I moved to Mumbai, finding acceptance in terms of housing was a challenge. And although I took home a seven-figure salary and had a company car, I had to live in the slums of Mumbai because high rises wouldn't want to give it to people like me or come with many preconditions saying like trans people can't visit you, you'll have to curtail the number of visits, etc. So acceptance means different things for different persons. But for me, I think if I would just prioritize psychological and physical safety, a lot of it has changed over a period of time. We still continue to make families of choice. You, Harish, others, Christina are part of our chosen families because this is what we have been able to grow into, to give us acceptance, to find comfort. We may not be living together like a close knit biological unit, but the fact is that our hearts are intertwined with each other. So somebody may be living in Dombivli and I may be living in Juhu, but whenever issues and problems come up, we are together. Another way of social acceptance is that the way people look at it, oh, now you've got this transgender act and Nalsa judgment has come through. So why are you fighting about? What is it? You also went to court. Now you got the right to marry. But someone wise really said this, that judgments often end up being wise words in an old book unless people have change of hearts. And it is this change of heart which is not yet there. While we celebrate Pride and see huge numbers coming up year after year, we also see suicides, we also see homicides, both preceding and following the Pride. And that is scary for us. The fact that a person has to die a lonely death without any support system around them, or even if there is a support system, it is not adequate enough or access is not there. This kind of thing continues to remain a big challenge. And that's where we see the role of corporates coming in to fill in that gap. I will stop at this and take it to the next question whenever that comes in.
Oh, thanks for sharing, Zainab. And that is very well put, Zainab. I mean, acceptance is different for everyone. Yes, you're right. I mean, for me, as a dressed as a cis person, I can pass off, but uh, my friends who are from different intersectionalities between the LGBTQI spectrum, who express a gender identity in a certain way and expression of way of expression, I have seen discrimination happening within workspaces, within social spaces. But thank you so much for sharing. You know, very importantly, one of the points that you brought in was how after NALSA judgment, after Transgender Persons Act, and then after the reading down of Section 377, uh, things and opinions about related to acceptance have changed. Have they really changed at workplace as well? I would ask this to you, Christina, first, because you have seen that transition along with the rest of us in the panel from the last 20 years, right? At the workplace, have you seen a shift in terms of acceptance?
See, majorly a workplace, if I talk about my organization where I'm working, yes, there's a huge change, okay, from what it used to be because of the sensitization, because of awareness. Like, you know, there are a lot of organizations who are accepting, okay, who are accepting people from the LGBTQIA plus community in the workplace, because they supposedly now have started with altogether a new thing, DEI, okay, which has started, and they want people from different section. The other day when I had gone for my HR conclave at, with all the HR folks of Godrej, across Godrej, we were discussing about this. We discussed about the DEI, section of our industry, and how we are going to work along with them. What are the facilities that we're going to provide? So organization has accepted. Some organizations are also coming up with policies that goes in line. Now, when we talk about, okay, why do we need to implement policies? Why do we need to make changes in the policies? If you're asking us to give you equal right, we should treat you equally. But having been said that, there's always, some baggages that people from the LGBT community or from the DEI comes along with. So we need to keep that in mind. Like, for example, very well, Zainab had put it across. Even when I had moved to Mumbai, for almost 3 months, I did not find a place to stay. I just could not. People refuse, saying that I'm a trans woman, or, I'm above this age, or I'm a single woman. I'm from the LGBT community, so we will not give you a house. So yes, and that's when my organization accepted me, Godrej Capital, and my organization had said, okay, till the time you don't find your place, you will stay at the company's guest house. And that is how, that's what I see when I talk about acceptance. That is what acceptance is. You don't leave the person, just because you wanted to promote your DEI, department, or you wanted to show diversity inclusions in your organization, so you've hired. Now when the person is in trouble, you're not helping the person, because often we do fall in trouble. So Godrej, I since I'm working for Godrej, I can speak on behalf of Godrej. Okay, Godrej Capital, this is how they had helped me, the MC members and my seniors and all. And that's how I thought, okay, fine, I can look forward to it and I can work with this organization. If not, I would have gone back. So yes, Tanishka, I hope I have answered you.
You have, thanks. And Zainab, I know a large part of this discussion towards the work for the workplace is going to happen in the next panel, but we also develop meaningful connections and relationships at work. We make friends at work. So coming from that lens, that when we meet people, when they want to know us better, they make mistakes many times. Sometimes they make suppositions, and assume things. How do we tackle that?
I think the challenge or the successes in this lie with a particular individual, because what may be applicable and acceptable to you may not be applicable and acceptable to me or Aditya or others. And I think one needs to evaluate it on a case to case basis. But let me just give you an example. Um, Often, a lot of us are also part time or full time social activists in addition to our day jobs. Like I do know you, Christina, Harish, etc., Zoya, who all support different kinds of work that we do. Now, our tolerance level, our resilience level, our get backs are at a different level compared to, say, someone who doesn't have this social backing or level of empowerment or level of self awareness. And this is really challenging because um, we kind of use the same parameters to judge different people. Like it's like saying, it's like a simple signal for all women are the same, but each one's lived realities, their socio-economic background, their religious status, their caste, etc., also play an important role. And hopefully, we can also talk a little bit about intersectionality later on. So, all of these matter when it comes to developing a better understanding of a person. So, I think the first and foremost rule is, if there are questions that you can avoid, please avoid that at all cost. If you want to ask something which is detrimental to your relationship with that person, you can go and check if asking these questions are correct. Maybe start off with a disclaimer saying that, hey, I want to know this, but I don't know if it's the right way to ask, or if it's an impolite question. Would appreciate an answer, but I'm also okay with you with turning it down and pointing me to the right direction to find this information. So in that way, you are being respectful, you are being inclusive, you're putting the onus on those who are expected to share the information, whether they feel confident. And the last option is that you are asking them for directions where you can seek help. So you don't put it on one person to basically give you the information. And I think that is the best approach. That should be the approach that one takes in every situation, not only knowing about gender, disability, race, etc., so on and so forth. But these are basic things that all that makes us human, and I think we are just putting it back into practice.
Thank you, Zainab. Thank you so much. Aditya, Zainab raised a very important point about awareness. So, how do you see how important is education and awareness, per your perspective, in um, in accepting somebody? How important does that how important does that play as a part of social acceptance?
But awareness is what um, has created the acceptance we have till now. Sorry, I had to put my hat on because the sun is shining in my room. Awareness is what has created our current liberation, shall we say? And awareness begins with, I think, on the gay individual, on the trans individual, or the lesbian, whoever it is. I think it's really important. I always stress this with people that a lot of our youngsters are expecting society to accept them, and then they will find self-acceptance. First, you have to accept yourself, and I think what we heard was this ACT UP was a big organization in New York. They think there's silence equal death. They used to have these bumper stickers, and so it's very important to understand that it is up to us to create that awareness. We have to be the agent of the change we seek. And so if we want society to change, there's no other agent. We have to change society. And the way to do it is to exchange, telling them who gay people are. So I've made it a point ever since I came out. I learned this through group therapy when I was at the University of California, Berkeley. There was a wonderful program there where grad students could get together and discuss once a week their issues. And I found my empowerment there in that setting. And they gave me the strength to tell my parents. And I also told everyone I knew back in 1988 that I was gay. And I decided I would use that as a platform to make other people aware that there was nothing wrong in being gay. So, one person you tell is one impact, they tell others, they have an impact. So it should be nothing to be ashamed of. We should be ashamed of ourselves at all. There's nothing to be ashamed of being gay. We are not criminals, we are not abnormal. And so as soon as we accept ourselves and we tell others, it's imperative. I know it's dangerous for people. Some people shouldn't do it if it's dangerous for them, if their society is going to reject them, their families. But where and when possible, the people who have the privilege should do it. I know many people who have the privilege but don't do it. Gay people, they still want to hold on to their privilege of being appearing gay to their families, have fake marriages. This is gay people do, knowing fully well they can do something different. They do it still. And so the social awareness should start at the individual. They should make society aware of homosexuality and the fact that we are who we are and there's nothing wrong with it. Until such time that happens, society won't change. So we can't rely on Bollywood to create movies to for us to then world to see, and then that's where social awareness and societal change will come. I strongly believe in this. So I tell all the people I work with, my juniors, the people I teach, fellow consultants, my clients, they'll ask me, about my family. I tell them about my family, but things don't change. So when we put our we wanted to put our kids in school place, I'll switch subjects, I'll bring it back to another social institution, which is the schools. And there is no awareness of gay families in the schools. And we were rejected from schools because we were a gay family. The only school we could get into was a non-Indian school, the British school. And we had to put our kids in the British school because the school in Delhi, even though I applied at 8 or 9 schools, including my alma mater, modern school in Delhi, was a highly respected school, they didn't take us. So, there was still discrimination. I would say that's discrimination. They didn't take us. They didn't give us any reason. And a friend of mine said, "Oh, they're going to accept you. They're going to take you in. You're going to model case. You'll be a wonderful thing for them to have in your school." He said, "You'll have no difficulty getting into school." It was totally wrong. We had a lot of difficulty getting into school. But once we are in this school, even in the British school, we wanted to bring up called Vedika Saxena, who's great. She does an outreach program at the Tagore International School. And I said, I was on a panel with her in the American school about how sensitivity training. So I brought it up with the British school that you should have her do sensitivity training of your staff. They said, we're sensitive enough. They said, we don't need it. Why do you assume we're not sensitive? They didn't give any reason. They didn't want to meet her. I said, how many gay books do you have in your library? You don't have any gay staff? You have any gay teachers? Are there any out teachers? Do you have a gay club for your students? They didn't even want to talk to me. They said, you're not the only gay person here, a gay couple in this school. I said, introduce me to the other. They said, we won't tell you. They are. I said, why not? If you had a Korean kid, you'd introduce them to the other Korean kids. Our kids want to know who the other gay families are at the school. The British school doesn't want to do it. So this level of non-acceptance is pervasive. And the only way to do it is keep hammering away at it, just knock away at it. And you just keep at it. And that's what my life mission is to just break it down, break down the barrier.
Got it. Thanks, Aditya. Zainab, well, you are a social entrepreneur as well. So this question is for you about the importance of economic inclusion when it comes to social acceptance. And where it is coming from is that do you think that when people are more financially financially stable and they are able to take care of themselves, their chosen families, etc., does that also create a realm of acceptance around them?
If you've looked at gender studies over the last half century or so, every bit of the gender studies around economic inclusion tend to say that the more out of pocket income that you have, a pocket income that you have and out of pocket expenditure that you do actually influences your living condition and thereby reducing multidimensional poverty. the same applies to us in the community. The fact is that we can continue to talk about health as a human right, a social acceptance as a human right, the need to live in a non-discrimination free environment, the freedom, etc., so on and so forth. But these are time consuming and longer term effort because we've seen that a letter in law doesn't change people's hearts. And that's why even after the Nalsa judgment, we've had so much of pushback when it comes to decoding or presenting issues of LGBTIQ people in the court. And without getting too much into that, let me come to this issue of economic justice. Now, while all of us are parts of corporates, and some of us are doing fantastically great work in the issue in the area of inclusion, but we do know from inclusion and talent acquisition data that the supply and demand side often do not match each other's requirements. And hence, there is a need for us to start looking at other avenues for people to have access to social empowerment through economic justice interventions. And that is where we actually, people from the communities, when they become entrepreneurs, when they start contributing to the economic ecosystem, from job seekers, you become job creators and in a perfectly legal, compliant matter. So tomorrow people don't tell you, oh, you're feeding off the system, which is nothing wrong because we are still a socialist democratic country and a lot of us continue to remain under the lines of poverty. But when you start creating jobs, when you start going into the realm of social justice and economic justice, you are opening the dimensions for people to sit across the space and talk to you. Today, if you have $1,000 in your pocket and if I have $1,000 in a pocket, technically no one should stop us from going into Starbucks from having a cup of coffee. The gendered expression, etc., are issues that create barriers. But if I remove that, if both of us have paying capacity, then both of us should have equal access to the table. So, having said that, I think when you start putting people into positions of power which come in through enhanced social spending, then automatically you get a seat on the discussion table. And this is what social development over 10-15 years has told me. And this is also exactly what is taught in UNDP's human development report, that once you start plugging the gaps around multidimensional poverty, you are empowering people to stand up and thereby creating a ripple effect on the ecosystem.
Thanks, Zainab. Quite insightful. Thank you for sharing. Now, the next question is to all of our panelists, right? It is about how we come in all shapes, sizes, types, right? India is a huge country. We have uh, multiple official languages, around 13,500 dialects. We have multiple castes, subcastes, and each one of us comes with these layers, which we say are intersectionality. They are people of different ethnicities. They are people who are people with disability. They are people who are from different gender identities, sexual orientations, etc. It's all a mix of these people, these identities that make us different and make us us. Now, having said that, do you think that the more different we are, the less acceptance we get, or the more different we are, the more acceptance we get within society nowadays? And in no order of preference, I mean, please feel free to answer.
So it's a nice question, Tanish. Tanish, this is like if I talk about this, Kanish, I see. What do you mean by more difference and less difference? Right. We come in all sizes, we come in all genders, and I'm proud that we come in all genders. We can explore more things. So, whether we are more different or less different, that should not, you know, separate us from getting the love that is required. society has started evolving of late. You know, if I talk about awareness and everything, now the awareness of LGBT issue, if you have also noticed, has significantly increased in recent years. Now, this awareness will encompass of understanding, acceptance of diverse sexual orientation and gender identities. Now, as well as, advocating for equal rights and protections. Now, it involves education in the society, it involves so many things. So obviously, people accept us for who we are, whether we are more different, less different, regardless of that. Because they get more confused. I still get people in my organization, I still have people coming into just bump into me and ask me, okay, what do you mean by bisexual? So as and when I get information, I keep posting on my Insta handle. What do you mean by bisexual? So what is asexual? What is pansexual? You all have so many sexual preferences. I said, no, you need to Google, you need to learn more about it. It's not like we have so many sexual preferences. Those are what they are preferred, what they prefer to be called. So it has meaning. Everything has meaning. And yes, people are learning slowly and gradually, but they are. So we as a community, what I feel, should come together and create awareness and sensitization. We should spread these things, spread awareness in the organizations, in public domain, as much as we can on social media so that people get to know. Because if we do not educate, they will not learn. So if we do not, accept ourselves, if we do not put that forward in the society, that I'm a transgender woman, I need acceptance in the society, nobody will get to know that they need to accept me. They say if you want to eat and if you know how to cook, you need to cook and then you will eat. So if you're thirsty, you need to get a glass of water. You need to struggle of getting the glass, going to the kitchen, opening the fridge, or putting the, filter on and filling the glass of water and then drinking it. You can't just lie down and say, I need a glass of water. And the glass is not just going to come in your hands and you'll drink the water. So it's like a two-way traffic where we need to also educate in order for people to accept us.
Got it. Got it. Thanks. In fact, interestingly, the businesses that we incubate as Samavesh, the small businesses from the community, every business is so different in terms of intersectionality. Around 70% of them are not just LGBTIQ plus, but they are also from different castes. They are also from different ethnicities, different languages. They speak different languages, different income levels. It's quite interesting how we all are so different yet can live in harmony and love each other. But thank you so much. Any comments on this question? Any thoughts, Aditya, Zainab?
I'll say something which maybe it's the right observation or the wrong, but it's my observation personal. I personally think that it's not so much if you're different, if you're extra different, do people accept you or not, or how different you need to be. I think I'll say the more educated you are, the less you're able to accept differences. I have found over my lifetime that the more educated people, and case in point being the justices of the Supreme Court, the more educated you are, the less they are tolerant of homosexuality. The poorer people, the less think with their hearts, they are more accepting, they accept people more, they understand that there are issues, they understand the issue of marginalization. I have found more sympathy with people who are less educated and less rich. And I found the more rich of all my relatives, the richer they were, the least they were of accepting of me. Most of them, all of them were, I would say. But I found that my uncle was a very highly respected lawyer. He was one at the top of his game in East Africa, where my mother was from. He couldn't accept me. He said, "Oh, why does he need to tell everyone?" That man was the most educated person he was the patriarch, most educated person in our family. He couldn't get it. The ones who are less educated just ran businesses, or just even amongst my friends circles, I find it's easier for me to relate to people who are less educated for this reason. And the more educated you are, the more are, and the more your hang-ups are, and the more you're kind of game of society and the systems and the classes and the status quo. So it's a question of what is the education getting you? You know, the formal education, what is it getting you? I don't think it's getting you much, because those people have closed minds. It's not opening the education, not opening their mind, it's closing their mind. It's my observation.
Thanks for sharing. In fact, the underlying is about somebody who has tasted discrimination earlier will be more empathetic to people
Exactly.
who are facing this in any form. Uh, Zainab, any thoughts? I mean, this is the closing one. So, any thoughts that you have on this question? Or
I have something that will ruffle too many feathers, but I'm still going to go and say this. So, living as a person who has been marginalized on the basis of their gender expression or sex or sexuality is not the same for everyone. I think just the four of us on this panel shows the very background that we come from: education, access to resources, access to finances, positioning, etc. And hence the intersectionality approach, which for that matter is a relatively new term because it's just been around 30 odd years into circulation because it came up in 1989 by Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw. So for me, like if I just look at some information, like for example, although we talk about LGBTIQ plus, and we think that it's straight jacketing, it's putting together, and it's very easy to call that term. But some of our experiences, and very much the experiences shared on this panel, are such distinct experiences. The fact that access to housing, which may be difficult for, which may be very easy for cisgendered persons, are exactly way more difficult for trans persons or people of trans experience. So, when COVID happened, we did a couple of focus group discussions. We found that bisexual women in India had to bear more of the brunt than, say, a bisexual man or a queer person or a trans person when it came to household. And this is such a different context. Also, in terms of trans women are subjected to the more sharper end of male gender-based violence. And for us, especially those who are looking at social acceptance, need to understand the fact that Audre Lorde said this, that there is no such thing as a single issue struggle because we don't live single issue lives. So when we are trying to look at equality, yes, all of us believe we are equal, but definitely we are all not the same. Hence, social acceptance need to take into account caste, religion, socioeconomic status, ability, or the fact that we are dealing with self acceptance. I mean, I wish self acceptance was easy, but for so many of us who have gone through extremely traumatic childhood, adolescent, and growing up experiences, that it takes a lot of courage to come out and continuously coming out throughout your life because this is a never ending journey. So, intersectionality is the way ahead, and I hope we start discussing this in more frequent order because a person, say, coming from an OBC or a Bahujan community may experience gender, sexual orientation, expression very differently compared to somebody others. And it is not whitewashing, but basically social justice that requires us to look at it from an individual perspective. So this is what I wanted to share. Thank you so much, Kanish.
thank you, Zainab. Thank you. I mean, it is an interesting discussion, and if we ever meet in person, I think we could extend this. I look forward to it. But thank you so much for being part of the panel. Uh, all three of you, Aditya, Christina, Zainab, a very insightful conversation. And thank you, IFCCI and Godrej Industries for hosting it. I close it with a quote from Dr. Ambedkar. He said that equality may be fiction, but nonetheless, one must accept it as a governing principle. Uh, all the best for all the great work that you all do. And I look forward to meeting with you all in person. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, especially Kanishk, Christina, Zainab, and Aditya for being so candid and sharing your experiences. Following this, our next panel focuses on equal opportunity and inclusion at the workspace. For this, I would like to welcome our moderator, Nirupan Rupathevan from BNP Paribas, along with our panelists, Harish Iyer from Axis Bank, Zoya from Godrej Properties, Chandani Kamal from HCL Tech, Rashmi Handa from Microsoft India, and Neelam Jain from Peripheral. Over to you, Neil.
Thank you so much, Tracy, and thank you so much, Kanishka, and all the panelists for having beautifully moderated this discussion on transformation towards social acceptance. So our discussion today with our esteemed panelists is on equal opportunity and inclusion of the LGBTQIA community in the workspace. So our focus would be on the workspace. So the first question we have for our panelists today is on why is the LGBTQIA matter important for your organization. And for this one, I'd like to invite Harish, Zoya, and Chandini to share their perspective.
Harish, you'd like to go first?
Yes, go ahead,
Go
Zoya.
first. Mhm.
Okay, I think for Godrej, um, before I joined Godrej, I think I was I was seeing some videos of Nisa. I think there was one particular interview which she has done with Anupama Chopra, where she was talking about where she had visited Kashish Film Festival, and Anupama in the video asked her that why do you do this piece on LGBTQ? You know, as an organization, considering it's been a very polarizing topic for a business organization to kind of pick this up, and she answered this wonderfully, and I'll just repeat that. Um, Godrej started in the Swadeshi movement, in the independence struggle, and we understand our roots from there, and our value system stems in from there. So we look at in everything from an equality perspective. And then Anupama nudged her on to say that, you know, but within the organization, do you see that, you know, some people saying that this is a little more top driven approach? Is it something that some people are still not agreeable to? Which he said that, which to which Nisa replied that as an organization, this is who we are. And if you do not accept it, then maybe this is not the right place for you. And this is the organization that we are trying to create. Coming to Godrej Properties, the purpose of Godrej Properties is that we create spaces that enable everyday joys for one community, one family, and one home at a time. We believe that a home can be owned by anyone and everyone. And if you have to build homes for everyone, hence our workforce should represent the community that we serve, and that includes people who are from from different communities, and then we kind of put them into the thing. So it's into our purpose, it's into our value system, and hence we do it. That's the bottom line of it.
Thank you so much. So yeah, maybe we can move to you, Chandini, and then we'll with Harish.
Right, sure. Thank you. I think first I would start with saying I'm pretty humbled to be a part of this conversation because with all stalwarts who've been doing so much work around, so I'm sure I'm going to learn a lot and take back, right? So I think that's the thing that I want to start off with. But to your question, Nirpan, is why is it important? I think uh, as we take care of diversity, right? Diversity, equity, and inclusion, and belongingness, it's important that we are able to target every diverse group, right? As an organization, we are all looking for the right talent. I think talent is always, the organization is looking at the hunt of having the right talent. And if we are letting go a big sector, a big cohort of people saying, you know what, you're not doing the right thing, right? You're not able to, bring out every individual. And I think we've surpassed that conversation that why diversity is important. Diversity is important because everyone brings in a different aspect. And I think that's most important for the right brainstorming, getting the right business results. So exactly as Zoya said, you have people all around with different, diverse backgrounds. But and you need to have everyone represented, and that's why you will be an entire whole organization. Otherwise, it will be only a representation of one part, be it, typically what used to happen till date was when you talk about diversity, you would only think of, oh, women, right? A gender, or even more very specific, not even gender, very specific of saying only, women. I think that is something that we really need to break and say, what, that diversity does not stop there. It's one, a very small part of it. There's a lot more which is there, be it from PWD, which is people with disability, cultural, generational, and all of those. And when we look at gender, even in gender, there are so much more. So I think it's important that we are able to give that platform that everyone can bring their whole self to the organization and represent what they believe in. So I think that is something that why it's very important for us. And we are in this journey. I think we are pretty. It'll take that much of a time for us to mature, but I think the best part is that we have taken steps and we are taking that efforts of moving in this journey. I think that's something that pretty proud of.
Thank you so much, Chandni. What about you, Harish? What's your perspective on this matter?
I think by recognizing the LGBT community or any community for that matter, no corporate is doing any one of us. My corporate is not doing me a favor; they're returning the favor. We have accepted the heterosexual community. We are very accepting. I go for their weddings. I go for their parties. I go for their children's naming ceremonies. So first of all, this whole whether it's Axis Bank or any one of us for that matter, to assume that we are doing something really great, that we are supporting the LGBTQI plus community, we need to get down our throne, at least Axis, and all of us need to get on. And that's the thought that Nisa has, that's the thought that Amitabh has, that's the thought that most of us have, that they aren't. It's a big thing for the world outside. For us, it is the right thing to do. It is not a good thing to do, it's the right thing to do. And that's precisely why we are doing these things. They are not doing, no one is doing me a favor by, no one is doing Zoya a favor by saying that, hey, you are Zoya and you are living your authentic self, or you are Chandni, or you are Rashmi, or you're Neelam, or you're Niruban, or whoever we are. No one is doing us a favor. It helps the organization. Just the financial gain would be a bad thing to actually look into. But the truth is that our organizations need to mirror societies that we live in as well. And in societies, there are disparities, there are differences that exist. And it's important for our organization to also mirror those things if we want to win in the market, because you can't just be an anomaly. You can't just be one odd person in society and win the market or win the workforce. The reason what Zoya has not spoken much about. Godrej Property also ensures that people buy, they ensure that people rent to people from the transgender community. If they don't find homes, their organization takes the responsibility of ensuring that each one of them finds a home wherever, whichever location the plant of Godrej Property is. So it is not what we do, it is what we do more that makes us more distinctive. So in fact, yesterday we in Axis Bank we had a HR conference, and I was speaking to a competitor organization, and they said, "Hey, how do you do that?" So I said, "Why don't you do that? It'll be wonderful for us to rather have a debate on, rather than just saying how much profits we make and how much profits you make. It'll be nice to see how inclusive we are and how inclusive you are, and we'll nice to have a debate on that and nice to have a competition on that, because in the end, my organizations come and organizations go. Our sexualities and our genders and our communities live forever. So in the end, if it's going to benefit my community, it's going to be far more beneficial for all of us and also our organizations. I shared Access has not yet worked with Neelam, which is something that Access should do sooner. But more than that, I was very happy in giving Neelam's number to around 2-3 people in various other organizations who could be competing. Hey, why don't you do it? So that we will use that as an example and we will do it later. I think it's going to going to benefit all of us if in this competitive market, we all of us start competing on diversity rather than anything else, because it's going to do well for our business, it's going to do well for our markets, and it's going to do well for people. And the bottom line is it's going to do well for my community and me.
Thank you, Harish. So I
I'll
think
just
it was
add
a
to
good
that, Niruban, one thing.
so yeah.
As Harish said, we do sell homes to heterosexual couples as well. But so as a part of our Godrej Capital, we do release we have come out with a product of home loans for same-sex partners, and through that we were able to sell homes for. I mean, we do have people in our communities now who are proud owners of Godrej properties who are from the community, single gay men couples and a lesbian couple, all of them looking at spaces. And I think
We are the
for
only
us
ones
that
to do that.
so the thing is that we are trying to create the community, right? In any space that we create, everybody should be living together, and that's if we are able to do that, that's the whole piece of it. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Harish. And so yeah, so I think here to summarize quickly, it's about LGBTQIA being a key pillar of your DEI strategy within your respective organization, well embedded into your value system. And also what I understand from the later part of the conversation that for some organizations, it even became like a business case and to use it more like a comparative advantage. The next question I had was to come back, to our HR practices and share with our audience some of the best practices that all of you are doing, although we are all operating in different sectors. What are the sensitization and training programs that you have implemented to ensure a more inclusive workplace towards the LGBTQIA community? So maybe we could have Rashmi, Neelam, and Zoya to share the perspective on this one.
Absolutely, Niru. Hi, Harish's cat. Lovely to see this. I usually have my dogs come in, so loved seeing that. Firstly, I think from a Microsoft perspective, Niru, if I can just take a stab at that. Right from the point when an employee joins, we call it new employee orientation, to the mandatory D&I trainings, to a beautiful module we have on the LGBTQI plus community. We have all of that. But I think what is important, and I would give more emphasis on, is that these are things which happen at a point of time during the year. We have year-long things happening. We have fireside chats. We invite people from the community to come. For example, we have people who come and talk about their experiences. And these sessions, when we have these fireside chats, are not just open for employees. They're open for employees' family as well, because changing one person is not enough. We've got to change the employee's family, and there are many sessions we encourage children to also come. So it's important that we get the right message, the right normalization of this whole concept to the children as well. So for us, it's not just bits and pieces, it's year long.
All year long, all year long. Great. What about you on this question? We also had Neelam and Zoya to share their perspective. Neelam?
So I think as a practitioner or as a service provider, I think it's also important that we help the organizations reduce their dependency on external partners. So really running a lot of these train the trainer programs, I think, is extremely important. Highlighting points apart from what Rashmi has shared as well. I think organizations really need to take up this internally as opposed to depending so much on external partners to constantly come and sensitize. That could work for a year or two or maybe 3 years, but would that work over a decade? Because this isn't a topic that would require awareness or sensitization just for a short period. We've been doing it for a decade and it's not enough. It looks like it would take a lot more time. So I think driving programs internally is extremely important. I think it's also important that we work on things like, training the HR groups on actually drafting policies. An interesting thing that we see is, we bring in a partner, they draft the policies, but then nobody knows how to actually go about implementing on the back of those policies. How do you actually help someone avail the benefit etc. So it's an important training to actually understand the end-to-end of how a policy could work, how a benefit could work. I think all of those sensitization, all of those training programs could really come in handy. I think another last point on this would be to also get a little creative. I think there is an interest with the larger employee group to be sort of brought this topic through art and other mediums. We did this interesting thing where we actually used these closets that we have. Godrej makes those closets, the antique ones that I'm talking about. Our grandparents used to use them. So we actually used the closet as a metaphor to share journeys of transgender persons. So outside the closet, you would see stories of people as how they kind of put themselves to the society, but then you open the closet and you actually see people for who they are. You see their intimate pictures, you see them being themselves. So could really use art as a medium, because sometimes art can do what 1,000 words cannot. So really going beyond the binary system of sensitization could help.
Can I just add on to what you just said, Neelam? Art is such a strong tool, if I may say. We did two initiatives last year. One, we invited, as a part of our, in fact, last year during Pride only, we invited someone from the community who's an art scholar. And we said that we are going to talk about the LGBTQI ethos across the ages, and not just in India, across, globally. And it was so beautiful to actually see, and we had friends and family in this session. And it was extremely nice to have this conversation, and so that the children on the call could actually see that this is such a normal concept we're talking about. It's nothing, new. And it's nothing very, what do I say, limited to India. It's across the world. It's, right from Turkish emperors to everywhere. And the other thing we did was with an NGO called Aravani, where we actually partnered with them, and beautiful art came out as an art curve. So sorry, I just jumped into that, but I wanted to pick up.
Thank you so much. Zoya, on your side, what kind of training or awareness have you done in your organization?
When we look at sensitization and trainings, there are two things I like to put. One is that sensitization is just theory, okay, or it's just awareness and knowledge. When we look at a training, there are three things that you look at. One is knowledge transfer, you look at capability change, and you look at mindset change. There is no capability as a concept in awareness sessions. So you have a knowledge transfer, and you have a mindset change. In 3 hours or 1-2 hours, you're not going to have a mindset change. That is something that we should be aware of, and hence it's only going to be how much awareness that you're spreading, and even how much a person can consume in that much time, so that they remember. It is human capacity to, if you sit in a session, you will remember 40% of it, and then you'll pass on 20% of it, is what is considered as the thing. So hence, along with the sensitization, you actually need to do representation. If you do not have the people who they have to be sensitive towards, it's the sensitization makes no sense. And hence, when we started doing work, we actually said that, okay, let's do sensitization, and we will increase our numbers simultaneously. Because if you just have representation and no sensitization, it's problematic. And if you have only sensitization and no representation, it's meaningless to do these presentations and those decks on gender. But yeah, so when we started doing this simultaneously, we started going site to site. So we have around 90 plus sites right now where construction is currently ongoing. We went each site, we made people sit down. We spoke about gender, we spoke about sexual orientation, we spoke about gender expression. And we didn't speak just LGBTQ, but actually spoke the concepts about it first, and then went down. We included the housekeeping folks as well, the pantry folks as well, because this is the whole organization that we had to bring. These were initial steps, but in addition to all of this, there was a consistent messaging that was going on at every point of time. Like how Neelam spoke about the closet, which is a beautiful way of doing it. We did the human library, which is a very common sense, but we did it with our own employees. We generally, an organization will do bring in folks from the queer community. Look, these are special items for you to know about, and ye hai alag ajuba that you should know about it. No, we are all colleagues. And we wanted everybody to go a little more deeper into the context of knowing your own colleagues and their own experiences. So I think there's been consistent messaging, a unique way of doing stuff also. I think Harish knows we created this one booklet with Gacy, which went into creating spaces and identifying in each space how can a person be an ally. And also, I feel the emails are a dead medium. Okay, in an office, if you're sending an emailer, it's going straight to the recycle bin of the thing. So I really feel that those emailers are the most piece of stuff. So we actually go printing stuff and I put things. So like say for example, when we were talking pronouns, we created those pronoun pins along with a leaflet saying that okay, you choose your own pronoun and then how you say it. Because if I send a emailer on, hey, this is what our different pronouns are, it's
People
not
will
meaningful.
not read
So I
or
think
will not go back. Okay, great. So in
yeah,
European Canada also, we have launched, this year. Last year we had first Pride Walk. So we thought
correct.
before we go outside and we start doing, this kind of Pride Walk, how many people will join us in such a walk if we do it inside? So that's a challenge we launched to ourselves. And basically, we've been able to do that across 17 offices and 1,300 employees joined us. And to your point, basically, we didn't use external facilitators. We had our internal employees coming and making these drawings. So this is what we've done, and we used it as slogan, and it has been quite a great impact because it was a way during the walk to basically sensitize our employees more and more. So I think all this kind of active way of engaging our employees, I agree, Zoya, is a good way to create good engagement. I see time is flying in this conversation. The third practice that we wanted to discuss, we want to go through the HR life cycle. I'm not sure whether we'll have the time, but at least let's try. Can you share some of the recruitment practices? I'm sure some of our audience would want to know, like, what kind of recruitment practices that we have developed to welcome more candidates from the community. So maybe I'll ask Neelam to begin with, because that's really your main core activity in periphery, and then maybe we can have Harish and Chandini sharing some of their thoughts on this on the recruitment piece. So Neelam, with you first.
Yeah. So Periphery works towards creating sustainable livelihoods for the transgender community, and we've been doing this for 7 years. So I'm not going to talk through each and every aspect of the life cycle. I know we don't even have the time for it, but I think a few key things that we have seen and done, and which has really helped. And I'm going to mention names of the organizations because they're also very open about this. I very recently, within ANZ Bank, Australia and New Zealand Bank, we placed a transgender person who is 11th pass. Now, as per their standards, most organizations would expect, at the bare minimum, a bachelor's degree graduate. Now, that becomes a huge barrier for transgender persons to access jobs. Not all trans persons have had access to education, exposure, etc. So I think when we look at recruitment, one of the biggest barriers itself is the educational qualification. And if we're trying to include a marginalized community, a very historically marginalized community, we cannot work with our existing policies and say, okay, I'm still going to only hire graduates and then hope that I will be able to actually bring in more diverse communities. I think that really doesn't work. Looking at our onboarding procedures is extremely important for a lot of trans persons entering workspaces. The name that they align with, that they choose, that they prefer, may not be the same as what's on their ID. How does that reflect on your chat? How does that reflect on your email ID really matters, because if a trans person joins an organization and if they're out, I don't think they would want to be called with their dead name. And especially if they've been told that this organization is inclusive. So sometimes the intent is right, but then it doesn't really show in your processes, it doesn't show in your policies. I think that's, again, very important aspect of recruitment. And I think finally is just how we're really creating a successful career path. If you're going to bring in people and then just let them kind of figure out, okay, now you have to compete against those who graduated from the IIMs and the IITs, and while you've not had such exposure, I don't think that's a fair place to begin. So really having very equitable opportunities for the communities to actually build their skills, have the kind of buddy system in place, have mentors who have committed to their growth at least for the first year, when they join in is extremely important. I know a lot of the organizations do this, but it's driven on volunteering basis, and it never really, sort of fulfills its purpose. So it's important that there are metrics, that there is checks in place, that what are these activities actually, what is the outcome of these activities as well. Those are some of the things that I think could help organizations who are just, sort of beginning on this journey. Yeah.
Thank you, Neelam. So I think it's about reviewing our HR practices in depth, like what kind of qualification, what kind of competency we are looking for. We're also seeing how do we integrate, right? It's not just about the interview step. It's not just about the recruitment. It's about, how do we ensure that the person still feel being part and feel included, and the sense of belongingness, right? Maybe Harish, you want to share your thoughts as well together with Shalini?
I think I think one of the important, very, very beautiful practices is the buddy system that Neelam. I'll just emphasize a little more on that. Again, I'll not take the name. I'll take the name of another company which does it even more beautifully. Boston Consultancy Group. BCG does such a beautiful buddy system. So if you are applying for a job in BCG and you state that you are from the LGBTQI plus community, right from that stage itself, they buddy you up with someone else from within the organization, so that you could, because you'd have like 10,000 questions. I had a million questions before joining Axis Bank. I had questions like, oh, can I dress the way I want to dress? Will I have a restroom of my choice? What do, and I know of trans people who have issues, who have challenges on which is the restroom that they would choose. So, or are they going to be are people going to frown on them if it's a trans man and they're asking for sanitary pads? I mean, how does this whole ecosystem work is something that and I think having a buddy in the organization is of great help. And internal policies, I think one is the recruitment policy. Everyone is intentional about it, because as boring as it may sound, sometimes just putting us as statistics also helps in the organization to actually say that, hey, we have got 20 trans people and we have got 30 trans people. It does help in ensuring that those many trans people get opportunities, or those many LGBTQ people get opportunities. Um, while doing so, I think it's also important. What are the internal policies that we have? Do you have a anti-discrimination policy? Do you have a DEI policy? Do you have a human rights policy? What happens? Do you have an internal? Most of our systems are linked to the name that is your email ID becomes your ready reckoner for everything else, and we have other things like provident fund and other things which are linked to your name. And what we discovered, though we had all the intentions, right intentions, we discovered in Access that, hey, if we change the name over here, because everything was so tightly intertwined, that if we change the name in one of our systems, and if we don't have a thorough process, that name could end up being the name in our legal records, which could be the Provident Fund and other names. So how do we maintain this when you have 1 lakh people working for you? How do you maintain this without upsetting the entire system? IT becomes a very, very, very important aspect. And how do we enable various things? How do we enable? So we work with. So I mean, most of my friends live in Godrej properties. We use Microsoft Teams. So I think we all are interlinked. The solutions are there in this room. Okay, Microsoft Team needs to introduce pronouns as well in the next to the name, so that it gets easier for us. So we all should take up tasks for ourselves and do things so that banking becomes easy, so that housing becomes easy, so that capital, NBFC in a larger way, lending with the things that banks don't do. Zoya does by lending money to same-sex partners. I think the solutions lie over here. And not all of us are experts in everything, but this is the ecosystem. This panel discussion is the ecosystem that needs to uplift each one. And if we do it for each one of us, I think we'll be in a better world. Mhm.
Okay, great. I see, different questions which are coming our way. So panelists will go a little bit off tangent from the initial kind of practices that we had in mind. So the first question that we have received from the members is, what kind of support or resources could employers provide to help trans individuals fulfill their social responsibilities in the workplace? So this question came from one of our members from the Indo-French Chamber of Commerce. So who would like to take this question?
I think I'll take that, Nirupan.
Yeah.
You want to go, Harish, please?
No, go Zoya.
I think from a trans perspective, and I think already Harish did reveal some of it. So when we were hiring a lot of trans people, I think Neelam added the right point, that is the taken name and the given name, and I think Harish added to it. The system has to support you, and you don't have to support the system. Okay, your IT systems are supposed to be created in such a way that really match the thing. We have actually made that change in GPL and in Godrej, where the taken name is taking in, say, for example, if my internet is opening and I'm seeing my dead name every time, it's going to piss me off. It's going to hit my dysphoria into another place. So these changes, your email ID is your first reference. All of these changes have to be made in your Form 16, your Provident Fund, in the travel platform. That's where your given name has to be taken. You have to just figure out that tech piece of it. Once that is done, that is one big aspect for a trans perspective. The second, what we felt is very important from a policy perspective, is gender affirmation support that we can provide. And not just from a medical perspective, but from a guidelines perspective as to what the manager will do when a person is going on transitioning, what their colleagues will do, and what the HR will do. And also when they're coming back, like how you have a maternity return to work policy, the similar return to work guidelines should be in a context of understanding. Because if somebody is going through SRS and is going on a surgery, generally a 2 months leave is what is taken into consideration. And then how are you kind of bringing that? Third thing that we realized is, while we were hiring a trans person, that hiring was the most easiest aspect. You can find the person to match that talent pool and you put them in. But accommodation for a person who is a trans person was the most difficult aspect. A well-documented case study of the Cochin Metro, touted to be one of the best at one point of time, saying that we have hired all trans people. In around 1 month's time, all the trans people had to leave because they were having to stay in the outskirts of Cochin because they were not getting accommodation. Same thing was happening with us. That's when we realized that, okay, let's take on spaces of ourselves. And now we sublet it, or we kind of give it on to trans people. I think these three things helps to make the start line same for a trans person and with another person who is heterosexual, means a cisgendered person. And then we kind of, I think, should suffice. There might be many other things I may have missed, but these are three things that were major changes that we made. There are other consultations that we do, like an endocrinologist and a psychologist and a psychiatrist when a person is going to transition support. But those are, I still see second.
Quite an elaborated reply, Zoya. Thank you so much. I hope it helps our member company. I'll come back to our flow. What is the role of the Pride Network? Because I know that some of you discussing with you before have a Pride Network in your current organization. And how do you partner with them? How do HR partner with this Pride Network? So this question is for Chandini and Rashmi.
Okay. So, I'll take a step back and I'll try and answer this. If you look at the Microsoft mission statement, it says, empower every person on this planet to achieve more. It doesn't say every cisgender. It doesn't say every homosexual. It doesn't say every heterosexual, or whatever section you want to call it. It just says every individual. So I guess every policy, everything you'll hear in Microsoft works on that. So that is the ethos. So whether it's, Zoya, to your point on gender reaffirmation surgery or HRT or anything, that's a given. That's a given. Whether it was during COVID, we had to give same-sex benefits, we will do that. So it's like, that's the ethos. Now moving on to the concept of Pride Network. We were lucky that in Microsoft, I think right from the time Microsoft was set up, the Pride network has been very active in Microsoft. So when we started in India, which was in fact before Article 377 was repealed, our discussions had started that we have to do it, whatever the condition is at that point of time. But we went ahead and we set it up. So we have about 400 people. So if you're talking Niruban internally, there are about 400 people. We have a very strong engagement with NGOs. We don't do it only during the giving month, which is a month where Microsoft matches whatever contribution we do, but we do it through the year through various NGOs. So whether we have bazaars come up, where we have people from the community come and set up stalls and directly sell rather than somebody coming in between, to mentoring opportunities. Also, one thing very interesting we do is we tie up with a lot of, now we have a very strong recruitment team where we go to institutes and universities for hiring. Now, in most engineering colleges and MBA institutes where we go, today there are communities or small teams, for the Pride Network. We make sure that the messaging happens through our recruitment team as well. Plus, we organize mixers. We've done some where we actually let children in the final year of engineering come and let's sit and talk. How, so that somebody, and in fact, in the last one we had in Delhi, we had one of the people from HR, our sponsors, come and talk, so that they understand that it's a very, this is how you can navigate to make things smoother for you. So broadly, this is how the network works in Microsoft, completely in line with our mission.
Great, thank you so much, Rashmi. What about you, Chandni? Like, what kind of, do you have a Pride network or whatever name you have used, and how do you partner with them?
Right. I think I'll just continue with what Rashmi said. So yeah, of course we have a Pride network and we call that as Pride at Tech, and we have different chapters that run for every different country, because I think the maturity curve is very different in every country. So we have for every country specific, but we also have a global level, because that becomes very important for us to learn from the others. Probably India is not there versus where US is today. So I think it becomes so much more easier for us to learn and say how did they move in that journey. So I think these conversations have really helped us. I think the other thing that has helped us having a Pride network is about, people felt that confidence saying, hey, yes, this organization respects and are trying to create a safe work environment for us. So I can be my full selves. I can bring my own selves to the whole selves of me to the organization. And I don't have to hide. Of course, we don't, ask anyone to, reveal themselves, because the Pride network is just not for the people from the community, but also the ally. So I'm a part of the Pride community, Pride network as an ally. But so no one feels uncomfortable saying, what if I'm part of this community? Will people, start looking at me? Because I think there's still a long way to go about saying, that thought is not there, saying, what will I be discriminated? And of course, I wouldn't say that everyone has learned that, acceptance is still there 100% not yet. I think that's a journey and we will be going through. But these Pride network help us, having those conversations and talking about it. And I think one more important thing that I would pick here is we've done two things, right? One is our senior leaders being sponsors. So every ERG, employee resource group, has a sponsor as a senior leader. So when you have a senior leader talking, I'll tell you one of the experience. So we had this Pride conversation. We had a panel discussion, and we wanted senior leaders to be sponsored. So we had a couple of them, and we said you need to be in a panel discussion with us on having this conversation that everyone can speak. They said okay, fine, of course. And then they later come back and say, hey, Chandni, can we have a conversation? I really need to understand what it is, because I don't want to, say something else during a panel discussion, and I really want to learn. So we did, of course, I'm also in the learning curve. So we did have the right set of people, have a conversation around it. And we could see the difference that the leader had that confidence that, yes, I can speak. And we could see in every other conversation that happened post that, there was so much more, pleasant, positive change, right? I think that is something that really helped. And the other thing that I want to talk about was the reverse mentoring that we did. The part of the Pride Network, the leads there could do a reverse mentoring, because we may be in whatever spaces we are, but do we understand? We really don't understand that until unless we don't hear directly from them. And that's why we had a lot of sessions starting from our senior leaders to have this reverse mentoring. We had for our HR folks, to sensitize. I think that's how we are able to create the right enabling and a safe work environment for everyone. And the last thing that I would want to add is, of course, this is the group whom we reach out for making any right changes in the policies and processes that we want. Exactly as the technology, the given name versus the dead name, what should I? So we have kind of, worked on that. Basis the inputs that we got. The first time the question came, we were like, no, this is not possible. This is how the IT is set up. We can't really do anything about it. And then he said, hey, you know what? This is not an answer that we can really give. This is not fair and this is not right. You need to do the things which are right, right? And we learned how can we do it. And we have, moved that obstacle. And now, it's a standard, simple process. You want to go change your name, you want to change your mail ID. You can do all of that by yourselves. There's no one that, you need to reach out to and, speak about it. Just go ahead and do it. We've empowered everyone to doing. I think these are some things that have helped us from the Pride Net.
Thank you, Chandini. So I think Rashmi and Chandni, we also have at BNP Paribas Pride Network. It's one of the largest we have in APAC, where we have. So when we started, I think there were some doubts. There was some reflections to think, okay, is it going to really pick up? And actually, it picked up really well. We have more than 400 members. It's one of the largest in APAC. And the Pride Network is a key pillar of our DI strategy, because they help us, basically to review some of our policies. They help us, to partner with external vendor who can help us on the hiring, on the training. And more importantly, they conduct a lot of sensitization sessions towards our employees throughout the year. They partner, Jamni, as you said, with other Pride Network across our global offices. So last time we had the Pride Network of Poland, of Paris, of Italy, coming and sharing, their employee stories, their employee journeys. And we also had one employee from one of our offices here who basically explained how he did his own coming out in his family. And I think that resonated a lot with our staff, because some of them might have these kind of things in them, and how that journey took place, and how basically they got support or not the support from the families, and what kind of ecosystem they had to rely on. So I think it's a key cornerstone of our DEI strategy. Harish, we have received a question from our members, which is a bit broader, I would say, than just the LGBTQ story. They're asking, from a DEI function execution perspective, how should organizations frame their DEI budget to ensure impact that is in line with the DEI vision? So I think it's quite a broad question. I think if you can try to frame that in a way.
Okay, I'll try to.
Follow up
I'll try
with
to.
that.
Yeah. I'll try to simplify this. I'd say that DI is not an HR function. DI is a business function. And the moment you start seeing it that way, then you will find the budgets. And be innovative. Like, for instance, in Access, we have something called as VIBE. Access, it's called Varsity of Inclusive Business Enterprises, where we run a DEI curriculum for different corporates. We get them together, and those corporates end up being our clients as well. Okay. Microsoft does something really wonderful with sustainability. They do something from an accessibility perspective. They have accessibility days, and through that they speak to their clients. So DEI doesn't need to become only an HR perspective of how many people you're going to hire, what is the input and what is the output in terms of hiring. How many like Axis Bank open businesses? We are a bank where same-sex partners can come and open bank accounts. In fact, they can open in any bank. We have just put it in our charter that any two people can come. Does that make all our processes very simple? No, we have 1 lakh odd people. Despite training, there could be some mishaps here and there. But are we getting bogged down by the negatives, or are we trying to be consistent and do better every time? So that becomes very important. So first, you will find the budget if you make it your business strategy. Godrej, it's a business strategy over there. They, as an organization, as a group, they endorse the idea of pride, they endorse the idea of inclusion, and due to which they find the budgets also, whether it was the India Culture Lab or the Godrej DI lab that it's been rechristened as. I think they do find the budgets because it is a business strategy. It's not just a feel good feel good, look good in the media kind of a strategy. They will find the budgets. Yes, it's going to be challenging many a times to in the beginning, but once you get your business aligned, and when you let your business people also see the profits of actually having LGBTQI plus, because those are dialogues, those are spaces that you'd want to be seen, and those are spaces where you want to be seen with your competitors, with your this thing, and if that gives you a
Good
cutting edge in
advice,
the market,
Harish.
you will find the budget.
Yeah, good advice from you, Harish, to basically uh, guide our community on how to influence, right, and getting the right budget. One question that we have is, what are the benefit schemes that you have developed for the LGBTQIA community and make your organization even more attractive? So maybe Zoya and Neelam, you want to share your perspective on that?
Neelam, proceed first.
So I was actually going to add a little bit on what Harish just mentioned,
On
and
the
then
budget.
quickly move on to the benefits bit. So I think what is extremely important is when you have a DEI vision, your DEI vision doesn't need to have just DEI budget or HR budget. You can use your CSR budget for it, because your DEI vision should also not just be about how you're enabling your own organization, but what kind of an external impact are you making? Like, imagine if your CSR budget sponsored for training of 25 transgender persons, corporate job training. They may or may not join your organization, but they would join some other organization, and that's an external impact that your organization is making. So that's a very important to look at your vision, not just as how it could benefit your organization. And imagine if 10 BFSI companies did this, they would actually benefit each other. Because the BFSI talent that is getting trained will get absorbed by BFSI companies only. So I think it's important to look at it that way. And CSR budgets are heavily underutilized at this point in time towards anything gender, trans communities, etc. related. So even now we have majority of our CSR budgets going into the usual education spaces, which is more safer. So yeah, and I think on the benefits bit, there's a ton of documents and information that's there online, but I would just add that we frame these benefits in alignment, in consultation with communities directly. Because I'll give you an example here. Like, you could frame a gender affirmation benefits or a surgery cover, but does that actually cover all aspects, or are you only specifically talking about sex reassignment surgery? Would that include some form of laser treatment, facial correction, etc.? So there are so many small intricacies to these benefits and policies, and I think we would need an entire session separately to talk about it. But I think the biggest place where most organizations could go wrong is to think that, okay, I saw something on the internet, everyone's doing a gender affirmation surgery cover, I just need to put a 3 lakh against it and I'm done. That usually doesn't work. It doesn't give the benefit at the end of the day. So I think working with communities, people directly could really help the process. Zoya, over to you to talk about the policies and everything.
I think there are multiple policies, multiple companies are doing, and multiple benefits. Where we kind of do it in GPL, at least, is we look at a person, we look at a cohort and what all they need. We see this is how my CHRO does it, okay? And it's a proper Excel sheet as to what we have mapped against benefits from whatever the cohort needs, where the group is, where GPL is, and where the market is, and where do we really need to pitch the gap. Gender affirmation, Neelam. So we launched our policy in 2015, many years ago. We felt the need to update it again, and we currently, just in the month of January, we had a round table where we had called surgeons, we had called psychiatrists and psychologists, and mental health therapists from the perspective of gender affirmation, and we had endocrinologists alongside trans women and trans men, and I was moderating the panel just to understand the basic part of how do we move from just M to F and F to M to really look at it into a more bigger spectrum. look at all policy documents, they'll only say M2F, F2M. These surgeries are covered. This is not covered, and it becomes very limiting. So we have started looking at benefits in a much more larger spectrum of sorts. But yeah, I think a lot of these things, just to list it down: same-sex partner benefits, adoption benefits, gender affirmation support, gender transition support in the not just a medical aspect, but really guiding them through the thing, because a lot of people don't even are not aware of it. They really need that guidance in that piece of it. We provide consultation support as well. So like a person who's going through transition, getting them connected to a psychiatrist, a psychologist, getting them connected to an endocrinologist, and also the required surgeons, because to understand what is right. Another important thing is infrastructure, and the infrastructure of a gender neutral PWD compliant washroom is something that we don't see much in most of our locations, especially when we are speaking about real estate. Most of our sites are not that, but now every site wherever we hire a trans person or a non-binary person has a gender neutral washroom. All the sites that we are constructing from last year onwards all have this included into the design. We One thing that I didn't cover in the sensitization aspect, and I'll do cover this, is because generally when we look at sensitization, we look at it from an internal employee aspect. But being in real estate, our customer facing, it becomes really important. So what we have done is we have created an all-inclusive model site where at the site we have included visual cues. From when you start, there's a flag which is in rainbow colors, which says everyone is welcome here. There are multiple standees and innovative ways where we kind of tell them that everyone is welcome here. And then the representation of it all, right? From a reception desk till the people who are going to a customer relationship executive who is going to contact you is going to be a trans person or is going to be a person with disability. And how do we kind of do this? Is the representation and the visual cue to say that if you're coming to this site, you're going to find everybody in who is going to be a part of this thing, and you have to understand it. Because I'm not going to be able to make a customer sit down and say, hey, this is gender, and ये तुमको आराम से handle करना पड़ेगा. It has to be done in a little more innovative way. I think this all matters, and these are the benefits what we try to provide. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you all. I was thinking, maybe I'll open the forum now for any one of you to bring a balanced perspective, because it's that we spoke about different practices, different things we are doing well. And one of you last time was saying, what are the practices that we haven't done so far and that you wish to do in the future? So maybe we can have one or two panelists to come forward and share their perspective.
I'll answer
Okay,
that one question because I think Neelam knows this about me. And so Neelam did raise this point about the whole graduation aspect. GPLO and Godrej still has a graduation as a criteria. And Neelam and we try to interact to understand how do we build a more learning program which drives them up to it. We already have a Pride internship which brings a graduate to become ready for a role in real estate. But I think that is one piece that I really want to pick up. I may pick up the brain with Neelam or the others with you all, but I think that's something that I really haven't yet cracked at its time right
I was just going to say the same thing, and also a lot of other things, like for instance, um, we one thing that we pussyfoot on in India is about caste. It's we don't organizations don't speak about caste and religion as much as we very happily would go to the US and speak about it, but not so when LGBTQI plus issues intermingle with other minority issues that exist, because I could be a Dalit disabled a Dalit disabled trans man. Okay, so there are 4 5 degrees of discrimination that I go through. I think, considering the political climate, I think most organizations don't speak about it or take a very safe stand when it comes to these. I've just heard Godrej speaking about it and having things. I've heard Tata speak about it. I don't think most of us even speak about those things. I think it's important to speak about that. It's important to recognize those other intersectional aspects as well. And I always say this: when you're building an organization, build it for a Dalit, disabled, trans man. So you have everyone else built in the system. Who also, and the disability, let it be somebody who's on a wheelchair and somebody who's also blind. So if you're building for that one person, if you have that as a design theory all the time, you know that you're standing up for everyone down the line, because many a times what we do is we build the entire system and then we go about making changes which affects the entire system. So if you're building something new, build it for a Dalit, disabled, trans man who also happens to be and the disability is blind and also locomotor disability. When you build for that person, everything else falls in place.
I love the analogy, Harish, and I'm sure I'm going to use it in multiple places. But I think, Nirupam, to your point, intersectionality amongst various, not groups or communities is something which we are actively driving. A lot of the initiatives on a very tactical basis, Harish, I'm not taking the strategic view, which you rightly said. On a very tactical basis, most of the employee resource groups in Microsoft, we work together, as in there's a lot of intersectionality which comes into the play in most of our initiatives. To give you a small example, last year, when we were talking with the women ERG, we invited Gauri Sawant, and we had one of our senior women leaders have a conversation with Gauri, mother to a mother. What difference does it make whether it's a mother from the transgender community or mother from the heterosexual community? So those are the kind of things we're doing. Another thing we're working on is, see, we've got a lot of policies and all, and a lot of the people who make the policies are allies. We are not from the community. So whatever we're doing, all the initiatives we're taking, are they even benefiting the right people? So one thing which we are wanting to start, we haven't done, but it's very, very soon, is we actually want to get people together, people from the community who've come out in small groups, and just those small roundtable kind of a session where we actually hear that what we're doing, is it even of any use to you? All the events we're doing, all of these policies, and if required, then go back and say that, okay, these are the recommendations, now let's go one by one. And lastly, Harish, on your point on teams, yes, it is possible. I need to connect with you.
Okay.
Add
Great.
some.
Yes.
Sorry,
I
I
think
just
we
want
are
to add
coming to
something
the end
very
of our
quickly.
session. So Neelam, if you quickly want to share, and then
Yes.
I think we'll move to the
Yes.
rapid fire. We have received a lot of questions. I'll see with Tracy how we address them back. But Neelam, maybe over to you, and then we'll come to the.
I think as organizations, we really need to look at how we look at contract employees. And this becomes even more important because a lot of the transgender persons that we've been placing, I think a good 30% of our recruitment data shows that they're getting placed as contract employees and they do not get any of the benefits that we're talking about. So that extends to the larger employee base, but not necessarily the contract employees. I mean, that itself is a big question, right? Like if they're working in the same premises with everybody else, firstly, why is that distinction? And secondly, especially if you're hiring someone who's marginalized on contract basis, not extending those benefits to them, where does that leave them? So just something to think about. I know it's not easy to go about changing everything in such big organizations. Easy for me to say it as someone who runs a small team, but we're here to influence that change. And I really hope we can, really think about that because that's where people are getting affected. Yeah.
Thank you, Neelam. It's true that contractors usually is a topic which is a bit overlooked sometimes by corporates. And it's true that even if you have people coming from the community and working as contractors, then they do not benefit from the benefits that the wider organization has in place for permanent employees. So I think it's good to raise that point. So rapid fire, the word that I have is belongingness. Maybe Rashmi, we can start with you, then we move to Chandini, and then we have a quick rapid fire altogether. All of you to contribute.
By belongingness, if you're talking in a corporate context or is it a personal context?
Corporate context.
Then I would say normalization of all conversations, and the example which Harish gave. All policies designed for a Dalit, transsexual, who needs mobility support, So that's for me is belongingness, normalization.
Chandini?
I would just say creating a safe and an enabling work environment where I can bring my whole self to the organization. And that's why I will start thinking this is a place for me and I belong here.
Yeah. Okay. Zoya, for you?
I think same thing, being able to bring your whole self to work and actually thriving at the workplace. I'm actually growing at the workplace. Yeah.
Harish?
I think having healthy disagreements to have a place where I can just not just be myself when I'm the best, but also be myself when I'm at the worst, when I disagree with people.
That's
Harish is the
fine.
DI
Agreed,
head,
right?
but before that, always an activist. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm always an activist. I can't be all this DEI, corporate and all. I'm activist only.
Leela, concluding remark on your side on this
Yes.
belongingness?
Yeah, I think just going beyond survival shouldn't be something, a place where you just come in because that survival is important, but a place that helps you maybe actualize your actual self. So something that goes beyond survival would be important.
Okay. Thank you so much. Tracy, I know we are really beyond the initial timeline we had. I think we really run beyond, and I think the conversation has been quite passionate. There's one question that I see that I have received, and if one of you can take it up, I find it really interesting. How do you raise awareness and foster understanding among your colleagues when you are undergoing a transition and have been part of the organization for over 15 years?
Zoya, if you want to
They're looking
Well,
for
I didn't
some
transfer.
understand the question.
one of you
Can you
could share
repeat that
some
question?
insights. Yeah.
Hello?
I think we
Yes,
lost
we can
Zoya.
hear you.
Till the time Zoya comes, I'll give an example of a customer we met. That person was from the community, was working as a heterosexual male for about 15 years in the same organization, same team, and then transition. And I think what worked very well is some point, I don't remember who made that, everybody needs to know how to handle, the way you have people come back from maternity leaves, there is a full, process as how the manager works, how everybody works. This has to be treated in the same way. And that is something I learned while talking to that person. So that's what I wanted to say. Zoya, I was bidding time for you.
Okay, so I was just reading the question. I think there was some network issue. I think what we have done in at GPL, at least, and I think the big win for me as at least when I've seen my DNI portfolio is that it's not the number of people that we have hired outside, but people who have come out from within the existing employee base. And there are some folks who did come out in various capacities, and especially one who is now going through transitioning through with us from a gender transition POV. The guidelines that we created, I think it was based on what HRC had created, and we just made it a little more GPLized, keeping respect at the core value. So Godrej as a group has trust, respect, and create delight as three values. But respect, it is how we want to be treated, right? Is how we'll treat the others. Uh, Training on the manager first. So I'm just giving context today. There is one conversation I was having with one team. Yesterday, I got a mail of a person going under transition and requesting for the benefit. We spoke to the team. We spoke the HRBP, me, the team, and as well as the hiring manager, the reporting manager. We had a conversation. This is what is going to be happening. This is what the surgeries are. This is how you need to support. These conversations are important, especially from a transitioning perspective, if they have not even gone through a social transition. If somebody is going through a social transitioning aspect, then we look at other aspects. But this is a medical aspect, hence it was more about the surgeries and how they can support. When it's social transitioning, then we actually get into how you will be taking the right pronouns, how the person's name will change on their desk or something, or even in their platform. So I think these are smaller conversations that you need to do with the immediate team, where the HR or the DNI team really gets involved. But if you have it guidelines specified, it becomes easier to just pass on the document. First you read and then we will discuss. I think that's the piece. I hope I answered that. I'm ready to share the guidelines with anybody who wants it. These are open to use any document that you want as a DEI lab, as a DEI thing from Godrej. We have always believed that this is an open thing. You can please request from us and we'll mail it to you.
Thank you so much,
I think
Sudha.
from a transitioning perspective, I think one of the most important thing is one is going to your true authentic self, but it's also the death of your dead name, the name that you were given. So one needs to recognize both the aspects as well, because there is so the training that is required, mental health training that is required, is not just to the often we look at trans people as people who need to be given some kind of training. The training needs to be given to the team manager, to the team, to the friends, to the colleagues, to everybody in the organization except the trans person. And also them understanding the fact that when you're having these hormone replacement, it's very difficult to keep a straight face every time. There will be mood swings, there will be anger tantrums. Your appraisal ratings are going to go all haywire. How do you maintain? We have a differential appraisal system for different people, and we ensured that the trans people who were there they were always kept on a median. They were allowed to go on top, but we didn't put them down below when they were going through transitioning. So I think all these aspects also play a very important role, not more than everything else: the emotional support, the psychiatric support, the psychological support, the appraisal system. How do you not let them feel demotivated because they didn't do well? And how do you train the managers to say that, hey, they are not going to be in the best mood every day, and you have to deal with it, and you can't use that against them. Just as we sometimes there is this thing about women, like cis women demanding things. They say, oh, she's screaming because she's in her periods, right? So similar to that, there is always a thing about trans people that, hey, this trans person is very moody. I said the person is moody because the person is undergoing transitions, and there's some 20 hormones doing tatataya inside the person's body. So they can't be in the right frame of mind all the time. And it's important to protect their appraisal and their growth within the organization around that time.
I think I just add one thing, Harish. There are four things that we generally look at, even from an maternity perspective, when somebody's coming back on leave, and there's similar things from a transition perspective: role, increment, ratings, and promotion. These four things, how are we really securing when somebody is going through this transition, whether it's mat leave or whether it's transition leave? I leave it for the organization to figure this out from a function and a level perspective. Yeah.
Thank you all. Tracy, how are we doing on timing? I see you on the screen.
Yes, I think we need to close now. So if it's okay, I'll just close. I'll just conclude with everyone. Firstly, I'd like to express my biggest gratitude to all the speakers, partners, and most importantly, the people who participated so actively in this conversation. To conclude, I'd like to say that let's work together towards bringing a more inclusive and accepting society. And a big thank you to our partner, Godrej Industries, for supporting this event. Have a great day and a great day ahead and a great evening. Bye-bye. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you
you
all.
all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Okay.